Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is Naeem Muhammad, and you are watching the Water Relief live stream. Let's get ready. Let's go. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is your brother Naeem Muhammad with Islamic Relief, where we are working together for a better world. Wait a minute, let me get my theme. My theme has to be in the background. Oh, no, that's not the theme. There it is. At least in the background, just a little in the background. So you guys know what you're watching. You're watching the Water Relief live stream, where in the month of Ramadan, normally this is happening about once a week throughout the year. But in Ramadan, we've been doing two shows. On Mondays, we've been doing our U.S. programs, looking at all the work that you guys are supporting and that you guys are doing here at home. And then every Wednesday, we've been focusing on international projects. This would be our last international day. We're in the last 10 days of Ramadan. I believe we may have next Wednesday. Technically, I believe we still have one more Wednesday. I mean, depending on the sighting of the moon and all that. But inshallah, like I said, we saved one of the best for last. We're focusing on water projects and the work that we're doing in Africa. And we have one of our staff that many of you guys have seen many times on the show. Please give a warm welcome to our sister, Arad. Hey, Arad. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
How's it going?
Alhamdulillah, going well. How about you?
No, you need to tell it. Usually, I'm Ramadan.
You already know.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Remind people what you do here at Islamic Relief for those who are watching us now.
Yeah, so I am the Senior International Programs Coordinator, and I cover all of our programming in Sub-Saharan Africa. So right now we have we work in about 8 countries with our Islamic Relief offices in West Africa, East Africa, and Southern Africa. And we are working with external partners in countries like Mozambique and Liberia to, implement some work where we don't have a presence.
Awesome. We really appreciate that. And for someone who doesn't know, because in the what does Ramadan look like for you at this point? Like maybe the lead up as an international staff person. Working with us, and then what is the your Ramadan during the month? What is that like? The lead up to Ramadan, getting ready for that month, and all the things that happen, and then what's the day to day like?
Yeah, so the lead up to Ramadan is really busy because our offices need to get on the ground and moving day one of Ramadan to do those food distributions. So we really need to get maybe like a month ahead and figure out how much we're being able to commit to each country, how many food boxes are going out, what the beneficiary population is going to look like. And that really needs to happen way ahead of time so that we can get, everything on track, and they can get all of the food boxes and all the procurement that they need in order to reach those people.
Yeah, and so then more than a month ahead. That's months ahead. I know that's actually months ahead, but
maybe like a month and a half.
It doesn't feel like enough time, probably at the same time, but
yeah, it never feels like enough time because time just has been going by so fast recently. But then like the first couple of days during Ramadan, it's kind of calm for us here because, we've got the money out the door. It's over at the field offices and they've already started their preparation. And then maybe like a couple of days into Ramadan, we've already started looking at Qurbani, and we need to get those commitments out really fast because it needs to be done right before Eid. So we are doing the same process of, figuring out how many meat packs we're going to be able to distribute to which countries, what the distributions are going to look like, what the population is going to look like. Right. And that needs to happen real quick as well. So alhamdulillah, we just finalize that process. So it never stops.
Oh, hey, and you got a friend checking in. You got Ali, cool guy, checking in, said,
my favorite hype man.
Though he's called you a ward, so that works too,
oh, wow. Look at that.
Oh, wow.
It's okay. It's spelled spell check.
Yeah, it probably is autocorrect. It's autocorrect. See, there it goes.
It is.
I know how autocorrect works. It's the worst. But I mean, and for those who didn't realize, what she's telling us there is that, like, there's the prep time, and then there's the delivery. There's the prep time before the food box and all the things that are happening, along with other projects that are still ongoing. Then in the middle of Ramadan, while they're watching, they're making sure those food boxes are being delivered, and and all that feedback and the reporting. They're now looking at Eid al-Adha at the same time, because Eid al-Adha is like 2 months later, and they were talking about procuring animals and how they're going to do those distributions and how those families are going to be connected with. So there is Ramadan. I remember back in the day, we should think, because the fundraisers are usually the ones that are running around, like he said, but no,
Yeah.
everybody in the whole
Everybody.
organization is running around. So
Exactly. And things don't stop just because it's Ramadan. There's still emergencies happening.
right.
There's still people that need to be reached in regular development projects. That stuff doesn't stop either. So
Right.
it's really ongoing,
Excellent.
full force.
All right, so awesome. So today is going to be kind of like, it's going to be like I'm going to say like an espresso shot of a show, because we're going to be focusing, I believe, on water projects and different things like that. So I'm going to let you go ahead. Or I know not just water project, but we're focusing. Again, we're going to be talking about our projects in Africa and the work that we're doing. So go ahead, and where do you want to get started?
Yeah, so when I was here last year, I spoke a lot about our water projects, our food security projects, but I didn't really talk about our orphan livelihood programming.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to spend some time talking about those programs, because I think they're really transformative and they're really impactful. And I don't think a lot of people really understand how they work. And then, inshallah, I could talk a little bit about the emergencies that are going on right now in Africa.
Okay, awesome. Let's do it. We want to start with the slide. Do you want to start
The
with
video.
the video? Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. Here we go. Sorry, I gotta practice that. Oh, yeah, this one I need to turn, even though we have the amazing music
Yeah.
from the background. But let's go.
Yes, so this was an Islamic microfinance project that we funded in Niger. And this was really a pilot project for the organization Islamic Relief Worldwide as a whole. And the idea was that we would take women who are widows, and I think half or a little bit more than half of them are part of the orphan sponsorship program. So they have at least one child who's receiving a sponsorship. And the idea is to provide these women with the skills that they need to not just be able to sustain their lives, but to actually be able to graduate from poverty and to be able to lift their families out of poverty. So this project actually coincided with the Qurbani season. These women all received, I think, 4 or 5 goats, and they basically were responsible for fattening the goats up, and at the same time, they were getting business literacy training. They were getting financial training. They received a little bit of seed money, and they were put into groups. And the idea was that they would learn how to receive these trainings and learn how to essentially run their own businesses. So by the time that Qurbani would come and the animals would be fat enough, they would sell the animals back into the market, and they would receive a sum from that and be able to use that money to start their own businesses, start their own ventures. And that's really a sustainable source of income. We're trying to diversify their income, right? So typically they have, very small sources of income, selling like baked goods or petty trading and stuff like that. And the idea was that, these women would be able to use these skills that they gained from this project. And it's also a revolving funds of money, since it's microfinance. So it's helping multiple women, and they're in these groups where they have this safety net where they learn how to save their money, and they do have these resources for emergencies. If something happens, they don't have to go and ask for a neighbor. They have these funds there. They have the skills, the tools that they need. They start their own businesses, and inshallah, they're all going to be successful and be able to provide for their families.
Okay, ask a couple questions. Like one, I think this is the one we're calling this in marketing the Qurbani Plus program. It was like, it wasn't just like, not just you know, you can do your Qurbani, and that was like one thing, and that's all well and good. But this, like you said, now this is like for they're raising these things. They're raising these goats or
These goats, yeah.
for the Qurbani season. So it's kind
Yeah.
of like you're kind of doing a multiple thing. So afterwards, so okay, just so I know, so they do the fattening and all that kind of stuff like that. Do they keep any animals, or they make that income and then they try to do it again on their own, or what's the long term on that?
Um, to my knowledge, they sell the animals back, but then the income that they do make, they buy more animals and they do
Okay,
the process over and over again while having their businesses as well.
nice,
So it's
nice.
something that just keeps going.
Awesome. That's great. I mean that and
Yeah,
that again and again this is, I mean, we've been talking about doing more things like this because you don't want just people in the cycle of poverty that like, okay, hey, we got that food box again, year 10
exactly.
on, you know, or here's that distribution that we do, you know, annual, but this is now making it so people can fend for themselves and all that.
Yeah. So if you want to go to the next slide,
All
picture.
right.
So essentially, starting last year, we put a lot of our funding into orphan livelihood programs. And we have
Mm-hmm.
some programs in Mali, Niger, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Malawi.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is we've done these projects in Asia and they've been quite successful. So
Right.
now, the Islamic Relief family is looking at other areas where we can implement
Mm-hmm.
livelihood projects like this.
It,
And so, the idea is to graduate these families out of poverty. So most of the beneficiaries, like I mentioned before, are part of the orphan sponsorship program. And while that is a really beneficial program, we look at a family and there's, a widowed woman and she has 6 kids that she's taking care of. And oftentimes she's taking care of her, brothers and sisters' children as well. And through the orphan sponsorship program, typically one of the children are being sponsored and they're being, their education's provided for, but it doesn't necessarily leave a lot of room for, the other children or, any other household needs. And so programs like this really complement that orphan sponsorship program because the idea is, like you said, yeah, while these kind of one-off relief or this aid that they receive is great, projects like this give them the skills and the tools that they need to actually uplift their families out of poverty because, they get the literacy training they need, they get the business training they need. In some instances, they get assets they need. So whether it's livestock like goats, or whether it's agricultural assets like seeds and drought-resistant seeds. So seeds that are not just gonna die out or
right.
take forever to grow. They're fast maturing seeds. And in a lot of these areas, they are affected by droughts and a lot of natural disasters. And then getting training on the specific sectors. So how do I best grow these crops and how do I market them well? And they're receiving all types of training like that. And these are really impactful because this creates generational change. And a lot of the times we know that when the woman in the household is controlling the funds and she's able to provide for her family, she doesn't just pass that knowledge on and uplift her own family out of poverty, but she uplifts the entire community out of poverty. Essentially, it's also about knowledge sharing. Oftentimes, the women who are in these programs are sharing the knowledge that they learned and the skills that they gained with their neighbors who might not be in the program. And then they have the opportunity to pass that on to generation and generation. And it creates an opportunity for generational change.
Excellent, excellent. I know they always say like, to invest in, and to invest in women, you invest in that whole entire community. You
Yeah.
invest in, sometimes you invest, I guess sometimes you invest in a guy like, good for you, man. You go do your thing and you're going to be great. But investing in these women in these areas, like you said, they
Yeah.
are, like I said, they're doing more for their family, more for their community, passing that on to their generations to come, inshallah. So that's really great.
Yeah. And I mean, it really does create another source of what we like to do is diversify their income sources, because, with these fragile contexts where situations, there's always natural disasters happening, and climate change is kind of making everything a little bit worse than it was before. And, you know, droughts are happening more frequently and floods are happening more frequently. It becomes harder to cope when you're already in a fragile situation. Right. So the idea is to really build their resilience so that when these shocks do happen, they're prepared, and, you know, they have the funds, the income, the sources that they need. They have different sources of income. If a flood comes and their farm fields are wiped out, they still have another source of income, and they're not completely put in a bad position, you know.
Excellent. All right. So who are these two? Well, these are two examples of families you have here. These are both in Malawi, and it's just, you know, one picture of a woman who was able to start a shop, a small market, and the other one, I believe, is this one actually might be from a Kurbani photo. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Maybe even the Kurbani Plus.
Maybe even the Kurbani Plus.
You want to go to the next one?
Yeah, so then I think we could talk about the drought in East Africa right now. Okay, and we do have a video.
All right, let's get into the drought in East Africa. Again, if you're just joining us now, just know that we're focusing on a lot of the work that Sisterad looks after for Islamic Relief, the work that you are sponsoring in parts throughout Africa. And now we're going to take a look at the drought that was happening in Kenya.
We're actually in a drought period. The short rains somewhat failed last time, and so as we speak, it is like over 150 centers are now surviving on water tracking. The little money that we had from the county coffers in terms of emergency response is now depleted, and the situation is actually bad. A very good example of an area that was actually supported, for example, by Islamic Relief, with the drilling and equipping of borehole, is this place where we are today. It's called Dugis. Dugis is a center with about 5,000 people, but the residents here are two different clans, and when we have limited resources, at times there is likelihood of resource conflicts. This center now, with about 5,000 people, is largely depending on water tracking. And so as we speak, people have moved away with their livestock. They have moved away since there is a breakdown at the borehole here. Now that all the livestock have moved away from this place, those people who are at so much risk are the elderly and the children, because they are no longer getting milk here, and which means it is affecting even their nutrition.
Kama Mungu tumelete, lakini iko maji ni kidogo sana, na maji tunabatanga watabusa, kila watabusa sisi na uzanga nani 18,000, na hii bohol ameharibika. Zamani bohol ilikuwa mzuri, ametengeneza hii watu ya nani Islamic Relief, wote ndio wamechimba kwanza. Sasa tena wakati ameharibika, hawa Islamic Relief ndio wamebandisha hii sola. Ilikuwa mzuri, lakini ile kitu hiko hapa, watu ni wengi, nyama ni wengi, hawezi tosha. So shida iliyoko sahihi hii amekatika, ameharibika. Tunataka itengenezwe serikali na hata NGOs yote, Islamic Relief ile wale wametengeneza kitambo.
Kuna vita kidogo kati ya watu ya town na watu ya msitu, ambaye ni watu ya Dugis pia wakaji, yale mwenye sasa wafugo. Sasa unajua tuko na water users wakijaribu ku manage vile itatumika maji, kwa sababu borehole ni moja, maji naye ile inatoka hapo ni karibu, ni kidogo sana. Hii drought sasa imetu affect, ile effect kubwa imetuletea hii drought. For example, hata kama mimi niko na small kiosk, sasa hii duka yangu nimefunga, na ile duka sasa ile watu walikuwa wanategemea duka yangu inunue kitu ni watu ya mfugaji. Wakati sasa borehole hii imeharibika na watu wananunua maji, majority of the locals ambao watu wa kutoka msituni wamehama waenda kutafuta sehemu zingine maji. So hata upande ya shule, enrollment ya shule pia ilienda chini. We will require all types of support to the people who are now very vulnerable because of the drought. Be it the cash transfer that we have been getting actually from friends. If it comes, it is more decent. And even the little money they get, they can utilize it for medication, they can utilize it for food, and even for buying even some water. The other issue is fuel subsidy for these strategic boreholes that are now, the ones that are operational. Animal prices have really gone down. Animal body condition is actually very weak. So goats that used to go for about 5, 6, 7,000 Kenya shillings is now going for about 2,500, 3,000 Kenya shillings, which means you could end up selling about 10 goats to be able to buy 2, 3 water bowsers for survival. So fuel subsidy, especially for strategic boreholes, is what we are going to require. Fast moving spare parts. I'm talking of the pumps, the motors. We are happy. We have been having partners who have been of great help, even making these boreholes hybrid. That is putting up the solar to cut costs, like what Islamic Relief and UNICEF have been doing. We appreciate all that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And somebody told me I had issues with sound. I think I see my sound bar jumping. So put in the chat if you can't hear me. Let me know. Yeah, that and Raif says it really, really right there. He said really inspiring. Thank you for sharing these stories. I don't know if people were watching this. They were doing the math because I remember earlier he talked about 18,000 shillings to get water access, whatever. And then the guy said you can buy a whole goat for like 4,000. You can buy a walking alive animal for less than what you actually to get water. That's
It's intense. And we know every year that there's going to be a drought and there's going to be flooding and all these natural disasters that occur. The problem is, particularly this year, the situation is exasperated because it's a stress situation with COVID-19. A lot of things in countries have been shut down completely and people's livelihoods have been disrupted, with an issue of the people coming in and when climate change happens and these areas, all of the resources are depleted. There's no more water in a lot of areas. The wells have just dried up and people are moving from place to place. And these areas are heavily pastoralist, so they all have a lot of livestock with them, a lot of camels and goats and cows, and that takes a lot of water as well. So can you imagine, nomads going from one area because they don't have any more water, going to another area with their 60 camels and trying to get water from that source, and that's an already stressed source of water as well.
And those people are looking at them sideways, like, you coming in here with all this?
Exactly. It's going to create conflict, but then it just has so many other aspects that it affects. Children are going to be pulled out of school because one, if there's no water sources at the school, children are just not going to go. I mean, it's extremely hot, and they can't pay attention, and it just ends up happening like that. Or girls have to spend time now going with their moms to the next village to fetch for water for the family because there's no more water in that community. So all aspects of livelihoods get disrupted because of this. And I think this year in particular, it's just been really rough with COVID-19 as well, and the effects of that. And in other areas on the continent, there's other, emergencies happening and, conflict and intercommunal conflict. And that's also creating other issues. And I spoke about that last time, like in Mali, Niger. And it's the same thing, really. People have to pick up and move and, their life, they don't have a source of income anymore, and they're just really trying to survive and trying to provide for their families. And so when we do our responses, right now we are responding in Kenya, which you've just seen that video from, and in South Sudan. And in South Sudan, the situation is actually worse. It's I think the World Food Program is saying that it is on the brink of famine. And this is just years of being in a very stressed situation in a fragile context. And so typically we would do water trucking, which is a very quick way to bring water to communities where, you know, the government provides these water trucks like you can see in this photo. And they go out to these far to reach areas and essentially
somebody's got to pay for that water.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody has to pay for that water. But we are also looking at a little bit longer term and recovery responses as well, because while these immediate responses are necessary and they're very much needed, we also want to make sure that they have a safety net so that when the next disaster hits, they're going to be protected a little bit better. So in South Sudan, for example, we are rehabilitating all of those broken boreholes. And I think there are photos of that.
Yeah, I think so, but I think there's one that may be in front of it. So I think
this so actually I went to Kenya 2 years ago, and the drought was not as bad as it is now, but it was still a pretty severe situation, I would say. And you can't really tell in this photo, but the animals are basically skin and bone. And I remember one of the nomads telling me, like, that's how we know it's really bad when our animals, especially the camels, start to, you know, die, or you can see that they're just skin and bones. I mean, these are animals that are meant to be resistant to these types of harsh conditions. And yeah, I mean, it's just a really, really sad situation. But, you know, we do a lot of in our development works, we do hybrid solutions. So, you know, typically we'll just do solar panels. And that's a really sustainable way of, you know, providing water. But in these areas where there are such a heavy livestock community, we do provide hybrid solutions where we'll do like diesel generators and solar pumps together. Because if you just do the solar pump, as the guy mentioned in the video, when all these animals come, they just exasperate the pump itself, and it just ends up breaking down because there's just being used 24 hours a day. So the idea is, you know, the daytime, the solar panels would work, and we've done this in Kenya through the daytime, and that's, you know, mostly for domestic use, for you know, household consumption. And then at night they'll turn on the diesel generators and have that just for the animals. And so they have, you know, these animal troughs where they come and they drink the water, and it's, you know, separated from where the people consume their water.
Awesome.
So we try to look at all aspects, because we know this is, like, you know, their source of income. This is their livelihood.
Right. So you guys are, so as we talk about, I think Rahma is one, or the compassion. So you guys are compassionate with the people and compassionate with the animals. So there you go. I love it. Let me go to the next one.
Yeah. So the next photo actually will show you what this current state, this is in South Sudan, and this is what a lot of the boreholes look like. And can you imagine an emergency situation? I mean, I don't think this is functioning at all anymore. I think they're trying to get whatever they can out of it.
Yeah, there's no spout on it, or anything, or is there? Yeah,
there is, but it's broken.
Yeah.
And you can also see, like, the bottom, it's just not, it's not really conducive for somebody to come and stand there and pump water and, you know, not get hurt, frankly. So what we do is we go in and we assess.
Can I add one thing to it? I mean, I'm sorry to be,
go ahead.
The non-program guy, but I can remember I was traveling in Mali years ago, and seeing, like, you know, like that. You see something, like, you're thinking one side, there's a nice shiny pump, but there's a guy in a hole next to the pump. And you're like, well, what's happening? We say, well, the pump broke. You know, they plopped the pump down there, whatever agency or whatever put the pump there, and it's gone now. It's died. So now the people had to dig in, doing like dangerous other practices in order to get access to that water.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I think something that we do really well is we try to do this. We try to implement do no harm practices in all of our work. So we're not just going to go in and just, you know, dig this well and just say, hey, have a nice day, here you go. It takes a lot of process. They do a lot of water testing before the community can even use it, because we want to make sure it's safe water, it's not contaminated, it's drinkable water, because a lot of the time in areas water is hard, so it has a lot of minerals, so you can taste the salt in the water, or you can taste the minerals. And you can taste that in the food and everything. And so we try to make sure that it's not hard water as well, and it's water that's conducive for healthy living. But also to just make sure that there is enough water, because you also have to make sure that the aquifer underground is not completely depleted or almost depleted.
I can imagine if you invested all that and then the water's gone like this, and if the testing isn't
exactly
done. That's amazing. I didn't even think of that. That's great.
Yeah. And sometimes they break down just because of overuse, like for example in that situation where you have all of this livestock coming and all of these people in the population, but in most instances that's why we really do the solar and the hybrid systems. But yeah, in situations like this, we go in and we kind of assess, the population. We want to make sure that there's enough water for the population. Maybe there's 10,000 people in this village. One borehole or one well is not going to cover that. So we also need to make sure to dig enough wells in that area to be, conducive for the entire population. And so the next photo, you can see what happens when we rehabilitate broken boreholes like this. So you can see this looks a lot nicer. It also is a lot more sanitary, because you can see there's an area at the bottom where the water would be drained out. There's an issue with sitting water. It attracts, mosquitoes, and that's a big issue for malaria or any other waterborne diseases and cholera and things like that. So these type of slabs that they do make, and this little area where the water can run off to, is definitely more hygienic. And these hand pumps as well, when we do go into the communities, we create these water committees. So these are literally members from the community who are being trained on the maintenance of the water pumps. So in case there is, a situation where it breaks, they have the tools that they need to fix them. They know how to fix them, and it's not going to be costly, and they don't have to wait for another organization to come back and, fix it, or to not come back at all.
There's a question here, and the question here is, Haris Mahmoud said, does IR work with restoring water tables via rainwater harvesting? I think it's called permaculture design. Could be better for the long term. Hey, I know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know a lot about this because we did our project in Somalia, where we had these 2 large sand dams constructed, but we've also done sand dams and micro dams in other, we've done them in Mali, we've done them, I think, in parts of Kenya as well, where, we do realize that there are longer term solutions, and these are really, really great and cost effective ways to doing that. We've seen in Somalia, once we did those sand dams, I think it was maybe a couple of months later, people in the communities around who were, complaining that their wells had dried up have been saying, oh my God, alhamdulillah, our wells are filled with water again. And this is all just from those harvesting constructions that we've done.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here because I'm excited about sand dams. Because first off, I remember Safi, he was when I had our international programs, he was all excited about sand dams, and people were fellas, they were I don't know what you're talking about, bro. I gotta show me a well or no, get out of here. And then, but I heard him. And then when we started, because it's an amazing concept. We're talking about water that would be from the seasonal rains that are normally just rushing past these families, rushing past never be able to use this resource and be able to build this small dam so that it captures a bit of that water for the people there. And then, like you said, then it starts to restore the aquifers and just to bring up the water table generally. And then on top of that, they seeded a forest next to it so that has all those trees, and so you have this whole like bit of a new ecosystem that's like greening that area. That's
Yeah.
bringing there's a humidity there now that's needed for different things like that, and you're and
Mm-hmm.
it's like, and the coolest on top of that was that volunteers are the ones who did this. We have this
Yeah.
thing called charity challenges where people would either like trek across Africa or bike through Turkey, whatever, and they sponsored both of these projects. It was amazing. So yeah. So
Yeah.
Harris,
I
you're the
really,
man.
really love these projects. Yeah.
All right, cool. I think we're wrapping it up soon. So Alrod, I think that's all I have there. But final thoughts as you, I mean, and I don't know if you can speak on some of the emergencies we talked about. An emergency, East Africa emergency, and we were doing this thing with Imam Sahib Webb. For those who don't know, I'm gonna go run this. Support Imam Sahib Webb's campaign because he is raising money on Launch Good for us for the water crisis that's happening. I don't know if you could tell us a little bit about that and what an intervention there is going to look like.
Yeah, so, again, with the East Africa drought in particular, we are doing food assistance. We're also doing cash assistance because that is the best way, is to just give people cash to be able to buy the needs that are particular to their families. And then, be able to get water from the water trucking, but also to rehabilitate those boreholes that are damaged. We do also, there was, I don't know if you know about this, but there was the desert locust outbreak last year, which was really bad and devastated parts of East Africa as well. And that's what I forgot to mention earlier. But that's also adding an exasperated situation because these locusts are now in their second wave after the rainy season last year. They've laid eggs and now they're destroying crops again. And this is people's livelihoods. It's their food. It's their health. And, we are trying to restore those livelihoods through these emergency responses. Similar in the Sahel region, it's a very fragile area, and there's a lot of intercommunal conflict and conflict spillover between country to country. And again, we are trying to approach those needs of the community, those multidimensional needs, in three different aspects: through humanitarian aid, through long-term sustainable development work, and through peace-building efforts. Because as you've seen, conflict can be created when there's not enough resources like water. Yeah.
Imagine, like, you guys see it on a small level when anybody who lives on the East Coast, when there's a snowstorm and people are in the parking lot fighting over a thing of water, a case of water or toilet paper or all that. But these are cases where, like you say, extreme weather emergency and extreme drought, and then we've seen, if you talk about especially like places like Darfur, these were really big, huge conflicts. That if we don't, and that's why one of the big things at IR we talk about climate change is, a lot of people say this is a divisive word. I don't know where you fall on the spectrum, but mitigating climate change is a big thing for us, because not only is it preventing people to have access to water, to be able to grow food so they can feed themselves, or even grow food so they can have an income, but it's also a peace building mechanism, because when you have, like you said, when you have conflicts that arise because the scarcity of resources, people, they're going to do whatever they have to feed their families. So alhamdulillah. So all right, this was really great. Wait a minute, I gotta hook you up with, did I do this earlier? Probably not, but hook you up with some thank you for being with us. Any last thoughts before you head out?
I would just encourage people to help as best as they can, and to, visit our website and donate to the causes. We're doing really, really fantastic work, alhamdulillah, and inshallah we can continue to do that with everybody's support.
Awesome. And and you guys, if you guys go back some of the old shows, there were like fish farming things that were happening in the middle of these places like this, all these like small
turning the desert green again.
Turning the desert green. There's so many little projects that you guys are doing, because we, like you said, we are one. So Aran, I'm gonna let you go. Thank you so much for being with us today. Get some rest. And
I
but
will.
not
You
too
too.
much because Qurbani season, and we need to
It's right
switch.
there.
Exactly, it's right there, so we got to get on it. All right,
Yeah.
take care.
Thanks.
All right, assalamu alaikum. All right,
Alaikum
guys, and
salam.
just to remind you guys also to, not tomorrow, but this weekend, inshallah, is the Night of Power program. We want to see all of you guys there. The Night of Power program is going to be a celebration of the Quran. I need to get the new banner because that says 6 p.m. and it's not 6 p.m. It's 3 p.m. It's going to go well on past there. It's going to be like about, I'm hearing like 4 or 5 hours program. It's going to be like a marathon celebration of the Quran. It's going to get you pumped and ready. A lot of messaging ready for the 27th night. Again, we're searching for Laylatul Qadr all 10 nights of Ramadan, all the 10 days of the month of Ramadan. But alhamdulillah, we want you guys to join us for the Night of Power program that's going to be this Saturday, May 8th at 3 p.m. inshallah. Really appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you guys as always. And again, as I said a moment ago, Imam Suhaib's project, support it. Support Imam Suhaib's campaign for those water projects that Al-Rad was just talking about. It's launchgood.com/TEN/10 for the last 10 days of Ramadan. That's our time for the day, guys. I really appreciate you being with us. And until next time, I'm going to leave you with a message from our CEO, Brother Sharif Ali. Take care, guys.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Sharif Ali, CEO of Islamic Relief USA, and I am here in Springfield, Virginia, in our warehouse where we're packing out meals for people all across the United States and abroad. But I wanted to take this time during the blessed month of Ramadan to thank you. Because of your support, we will be able to feed so many hungry people in the United States and across the world. But that's not enough. We need to do so much more. You're all used to helping Islamic Relief and responding to the call when an emergency strikes or when an orphan needs assistance. But what we want to do is not only meet the immediate needs of food, water, and shelter, but we also want to help people and uplift them out of poverty. And during the blessed month of Ramadan, it's our best opportunity to do just that. Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told us that the one who alleviates the difficulty of a brother or a sister, Allah will alleviate their difficulty in the hereafter. And I'm asking all of you during this blessed month of Ramadan, what more can we ask for than getting our difficulties alleviated on the Day of Judgment? Let's do our part by alleviating the difficulties of our brothers and sisters all across the world. It's so imperative for us to help the most vulnerable and meet their immediate needs, but it's also so critical for us to help uplift them out of poverty. With your support, we can invest in people. In a few years' time, they will no longer rely on our aid for their support. This year, this Ramadan, let's all work together to support people in need all across the world. We are one.
We believe in Allah. We believe that all life is sacred, that everyone has the right to dignity. We believe in going the extra mile to help people in areas others don't go. And we believe in the words of Allah, that with difficulty comes ease. Because each day we see your donations bring ease for people in desperate need. Even during the pandemic, we've carried on our critical work, transforming the lives of more than 13.8 million people. We've been quenching thirsts, protecting the vulnerable, building livelihoods, and educating bright young minds. This is all because of you, Alhamdulillah. And we believe in the words of the Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, who said, the likeness of the believers in regard to mutual love, mercy, and kindness is that of one body. When any part aches, the whole body aches. So most of all, we need you to keep believing. Islamic Relief. We are one.